What's up, guys? Got a little mechanicking video for you this week. This is a problem that I've had I know both of my trail dusters, my Plymouth trail dusters I have, which would be the same for a Ram Charger. I know my Power Wagon one time, I think I had a Power Wagon do this. I want to even say my WJ that I had years ago had the same issue. I'm not sure what all make and models use these little seals. I think they're fairly common, especially with the new process transfer cases. But so this will be something that, like I said, I don't know what all vehicles this applies to, but it's a fairly common problem that I've run into a lot of times, and it's a really easy fix. I'm going to show you how what I've always done. It's always worked for me. But I've got a leak that has started, and I want to say I've done the input shaft already. I want to say, but I've done this a few times, so I can't keep up with which ones I've done and not. But if you ever come out and find, if you'll notice right here, this is where termite was parked for probably over a week. I was doing the tire carrier, stuff like that, doing some painting and little things, just doing a bunch of stuff on here, and had not a horrible leak. I mean, obviously, you know, the oil hits and just spreads, but it is leaking, and it's leaking out of the output shaft. And so that can be one of two things. Either that's your main seal that goes into the transfer case around the yoke, but there's an inner seal inside of the yoke. And it's a little spline. You'll see it in just a minute when we get it out. It's just a little O-ring with little splines that slide into the teeth on the inside of your yoke. And so, really easy to identify. Obviously, well, let's just get under there and we'll look and see. I'll show you. All right. It's kind of hard to tell. And if you hear that ticking noise, that's just the exhaust cooling off. So here's your main seal. You'll notice mine is dry. There's no oil leaking here. Now, if you find that you got a leak and you get under it and it's wet all right in here on your transfer case, that's going to be this main seal right here. So that's how you identify that one. But if it's dry under here like this one is, but you see here where it was parked for so long, I'm blocking light. You see how it's wet on that strap? If you've got a lot of oil buildup out here, but it's dry here, that's obviously it's leaking from within inside of the into the yoke, and it's just coming out there. So if I let this set for a day or so, it would be wet. It would eventually build up, and you would see drip marks and stuff on the yoke here, which you can see, like I said, my straps are still wet from it setting the other day. So essentially what you're going to want to do is get your yoke off. Once you pull that yoke, what's setting right there is going to just come dumping out. We'll do all that, and I'll show you how we can fix these little splines pretty cheap. Because the reality is, I don't know, I honestly have not looked in years, but I know back when I first ran into this problem, nobody sold those little O-rings, those little splined O-rings. Nobody had them. You might could find some online, but the sizes varied all over the place. And so this is just kind of one of those things that's a quick fix, easy fix, and it works. So if you want to search around and find you a new one, that's perfectly fine. But I've never looked again. I looked that one time, couldn't find anything, found out how to fix it, it worked, and so that's just what I've always done. So let's get this thing took apart and so you can see how it's wet all inside around the nut. So that's obvious that fluid is leaking past the threads and out past the nut. So that little O-ring in there is what keeps the oil from passing to the threads. So let's get this thing all took apart. We're going to drain some oil out of it now, and then we'll get the yoke off. All right. Now, you see that? That is actually, as you can tell, and it looks like somebody has put some on it before and it didn't hold up. But that's your gas, that's your O-ring. That's where your fluid's leaking past. And it's allowing it to come past and down to the yoke. Okay, so here's your main nut. See how it's clean on the backside. Here's your little O-ring, and it looks like maybe this has been done before. I'm assuming that's RTV. It's kind of weird feeling. But you can see the little splines on there. This thing is dirty, it's nasty. But you can see that. And those just slide into their splines there. Now you can also see right here some RTV on the face where the nut tightens down, which is the next thing that I do is I always coat the back of my nut here with a little, just a thin coat. It doesn't take much, I don't glob it. Very, very thin coat of RTV on the back of the nut so that when it tightens down, it's just an extra protection of sealing. But that's where it's coming from. It's just leaking out down the splines and then out onto here. So, I mean, you can see how that could happen. So anyway, let's get all this cleaned up and re-RTV it. All right, so for our O-ring, I don't want to use brake parts cleaner, which is what I'm going to use on the nut and the yoke. That's fine for that. But I got a degreaser mixture that I use for my rubber parts just to make sure that we don't eat them up or deteriorate them anymore. So we're going to clean everything up real good, get all this old RTV off as much as we can, let it dry a little bit, and then get it all put back together. You can definitely see that this one has been RTV'd before. You can see it now that it's clean. You can see it here on the edge. You can see all of the RTV left around it. I've never had one that's already been done, so I don't know when this was done. I didn't do it, so I don't know when this was done. But yeah. So I don't know if I should try again to replace that. I think I'm just gonna go with it. I'm here, I got it took apart. I'm gonna give it a shot again with RTV. All right, we've got everything cleaned up. Got our yoke cleaned up, nut cleaned up, and our little O-ring cleaned up. Notice something on this nut, it's got numbers. I've never seen that before. None of the other ones I've ever took apart had that. So, don't know what the numbers mean, but have to look into that. I'll see if I can find something and let you know. So you can see here how this works. Obviously, your spindle goes through there and it just sets in there, real simple. So we're gonna put some RTV right around these splines and stick it back onto the spindle. All right, so we got our O-ring on the spindle. You can see we've got just a little coating of RTV right here on this side. You don't want to put none on this side. It really doesn't do you any benefit necessarily to have it back here. So I wouldn't worry trying to get anything on that side. Up here is where you're really trying to seal. So we're gonna slide this on now and then get our nut ready. So you can see our O-ring is on there with a little coating. Let's see where my mark was too. So I put this. So I know this side was down, somewhere right in this ballpark. And there, and boop. You can see it push a little RTV out around it. And now our nut, which we have cleaned real good with a brake cleaner, and that's really the key that a lot of people don't overlook is, you know, whether you're talking about doing stuff like this, or paint and body work. The key is in the prep. You know, for something to work, cleaning it, making sure there's no grease, no oil, because you can do everything right, but if there's oil on the surface, then your sealer's not gonna seal. So taking the time, I cleaned these with degreasers, then I went over them with just a little brake clean and just wiped them clean before we put it all back together to make sure everything is able to adhere just right. So we're gonna put a little bit of RTV on the back side of this nut, not much at all. And really, I've already kind of got it on the yoke. So, you know, I'm not gonna put any on here. I'm just gonna leave what's on the yoke on there. That'll be plenty. And let me show you. So we're gonna get our nut on there and get started. So we are back in. Got our marks lined up here. These nuts are not crazy tight on transfer cases, so just be careful with that. Don't go crazy with it. You know, you may want to, I didn't mention this earlier, but kind of count your threads. Kind of just when if you're not, you know, if you're gonna do what I did earlier, kind of the throwaway tech tip, get you a few references here. But it's fairly straightforward and simple. You can see everything's clean. You can see a nice little bead of RTV all the way around the nut that's squished out. We're gonna get the drive shaft bolted back up. Now, one thing I also like to do is give the RTV time. If you remember when we did our differentials, I like to give it overnight, let it set before I just go throwing oil back at it. Now, the transfer case does have oil in it, but if I drive it, it's gonna be slinging oil up into that area, and if that RTV is not set up real well. So I wanna give that, you know, it's daytime now. By tomorrow morning, it'll be ready to drive. I'll top off what little bit of fluid that I lost, which wasn't a whole lot. We'll top it back off, and she should be good to go. All right, guys, so for those who don't want to repair theirs the way I did, or maybe yours is really trashed, quick Google search, Quadratech has them. There's your part number, and you can see they fit a pretty wide range of transfer cases. I want to say these are the same for like XJs, your FSJs, if you're into Jeeps and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure a lot of your Wranglers, you know, there's these. So they are seemingly available now. Back years ago when I started working on these, like I said earlier, you just couldn't, or at least I could not find them. But here they are. If you want a new one, you can see they're not very expensive, but just wanted to let you know they are available. Okay, well, we've got the transfer case topped off, and I've been driving it for a couple of days. No leaks, nothing seems to be dripping. Controversial topic. What do you put in your transfer case? I'm the sucker that buys this. The Valvoline full synthetic transfer case fluid. It's transmission fluid. I mean, that maybe smells like transmission fluid, looks like transmission fluid, tastes like transmission fluid. It's transmission fluid. It's ATF4, I believe. And the manual for Wagoneers says to run transmission fluid in it. But I'm the sucker that wants to pay more and bought that, and that's what I've been filling up with. But I know on a lot of forums that I've been on, that's the hot topic of what fluid do you run in your transfer case? Honestly, if you ask me, I think just about anything will work for the most part. But anyway, so the transfer case leak seems to be stopped for the moment, and we are getting termite geared up. There it is. Getting geared up to head over to Talladega National Forest next week. We're gonna do a couple of nights of camping and trail riding over there. We got some friends going with us in their WJ. So we're looking forward to that. The weather has turned very fallish finally here in South Mississippi outside. It's nice. So anyway, guys, thank y'all for watching. We appreciate it as always. We're getting really close to 1,000 subscribers, man. Our goal was kind of to hit 1,000 by the end of the year. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Check in. We appreciate all you guys that comment, that like, that send us messages. We appreciate all that. We think it's really cool that you guys are digging what we're doing here. So anyway, see you guys next week. Hey guys.
How long have you had this shop?
9 years.
And when was the last time you cleaned it?
The day I moved in.
Yeah. We're cleaning the shop today. And this is gonna be excruciating. So day 2 of cleaning out the shop. It's a lot cleaner.
It's just a lot of stuff.
You have a lot of stuff.
And I've been thinning out up to this point because I knew this was coming. But there's still just a lot.
I think you have as many spiders as you do things.
There's not more. The ratio of spider to things is...
It's very equal. You have some big spiders that should probably count as 2 spiders. We've seen lots of spiders. Yes.
Just gonna tell you guys, warn you, if you're gonna have an old vehicle and you're gonna drive it, you gotta get ready for this. Dirty hands is a dying thing. Nobody wants to get dirty anymore, but if you're gonna have an old vehicle, man, get in there, get willing to do this, get willing to bust your hands up, get willing to have dirty fingernails, all that kind of stuff, but that's what it takes. Keep them running, keep them going. Don't be scared of it. It's just dirt and grease.